Entry 1. I'm 23 years old and the sole quality assurance technician for a food production facility on an unnamed moon in a system I could not have pointed to on a map before they sent me here. The moon doesn't have a name, but a designation. MFG 7. Catering Division. Sub-level operations. I've started calling it the Meat Moon in my personal logs because I need something to call it. And I think I've earned the right. I have a food science degree from a mid-tier university and about 11 months of post-grad work experience. All of it here on MFG 7. All of it spent confirming that canned meat product meets a sodium content of no more than 790 milligrams per serving. I understood the assignment. I accepted it. I'd like to have it noted for the record that I accepted it in good faith. Let me be clear. I knew what I was signing up for. That's what I keep telling myself. Anyway, I knew. The job listing said remote operations, which I understood to mean remote. It said independent work environment, which I understood to mean alone. It said unique facility, which I understood to mean weird. Probably in ways they weren't going to specify in the listing. The facility produces a canned meat product. Spam, essentially. The company calls it something else for branding reasons, but it is spam. I know the product now. I know it the way a person knows their downstairs neighbor. Intimately, involuntarily, with a complicated mixture of familiarity and low-grade resentment. I've eaten it the past 11 months because the company ration stock is the product. And the product is what's available, and the reconstituted vegetable packets taste like despair compressed into a foil pouch. I have strong opinions about the jelly-to-meat ratio. These opinions are professionally informed and deeply personal, and I have nobody to share them with. That's the other thing. There's nobody else here. I knew that too, technically. The job description did say an independent work environment. But there's knowing a thing, and then there's your 4th month in. Talking out loud to the atmospheric recycler because it makes a sound like someone clearing their throat every 40 minutes. And after a while, you start responding to it just to be polite. The recycler doesn't respond back. I've accepted this. We have a relationship anyway. The facility itself runs fine without me, which I try not to take personally. Automated systems handle everything. Intake, processing, pressure sealing, sterilization, crating, inventory. Conveyor belts move product through the line in a loop so consistent it feels choreographed. The pressure sealers stamp lids with a sound like a slow, mechanical heartbeat. I've walked that line maybe 300 times. Nothing ever goes wrong. Everything is always exactly within parameters. My spectrometer and I show up every morning and confirm, with scientific rigor, that the machines are doing their jobs perfectly without us. My actual function, and I've had a lot of time to think about this, is to be the warm body. Some interplanetary food safety authority requires one licensed human QA technician on site for any facility producing product for human consumption. One. Just the one. I am that one. I am a regulatory checkbox with a food science degree and a laminated badge and tasting spoons. I wash by hand every night because the dishwasher in the break room, if you can even call that dingy closet, that has been broken since before I arrived. And I've filed 7 maintenance requests about it. Nobody has fixed it. I've stopped filing. My days are structured because structure is how you stay sane when you're 23 and alone on a meat moon, with nothing but spam and a thermos of instant coffee that runs out faster than the resupply schedule accounts for. I wake up at 6 a.m. to the recycler's morning throat clear. I eat breakfast. It's the product. Always the damn product. Sometimes I mix in reconstituted vegetables to feel something. And I am on the production floor by 7. I walk the line. I pull sample cans at 40-unit intervals, run through the checklist, taste the product, log the findings, weight, seal integrity, internal pressure, pH, sodium, protein ratio, jelly to meat, always within parameters. I write it up. I feel, albeit briefly, like a professional. I file my reports on Thursdays. I write them very carefully. I use complete sentences and proper formatting, and I attach all relevant data. I'm fairly certain nobody reads them. I write them carefully anyway. Because I did 4 years of coursework and 2 years of certification, and if I stop writing careful reports, I'm just a 23-year-old college grad wage slave on a moon, with nothing but my corporate overlord's meat slabs, and I'm not ready to be that yet. The only part of my routine that falls outside normal operational parameters is the SEEP. I named it that in month 3. The SEEP. You name things when they're going to be in your life long term, and you need a way to refer to them that doesn't make you spiral. Month 2, I started noticing a smell in the East Maintenance Corridor. Organic, warm, almost metallic. I followed it to a drainage grate at the base of the corridor wall. Dark residue, thick, reddish-brown, crusted at the edges and pooled in the center. I took a sample immediately. The spectrometer said, inconclusive. I filed a report. I labeled it carefully. Anomalous organic discharge. East Corridor, month 2, week 3. Composition unclear. Recommend investigation by qualified facilities personnel. I am the only personnel. Facilities or otherwise. But I wrote qualified in there because I was trying to make it someone else's problem. Nobody came. I bought a mop. The SEEP became part of my routine. Every few days, down to the lower maintenance level with the mop and a shovel, clearing it back from the grates before it pooled wide enough to be a real problem. It smelled bad every time. I stopped expecting it to stop. I started wearing my old university hoodie down there because I didn't want to smell like the SEEP for the rest of the day. And I'd already sacrificed the hoodie to various maintenance tasks and figured it couldn't get worse. It has gotten worse. The hoodie is a loss. I've accepted this, too. I filed 18 reports about the SEEP over 11 months. I have a dedicated folder. The responses were 3 automated acknowledgements and 1 real reply. In month 6, from a person in facilities management, who told me the discharge was likely condensation byproduct from the lower processing systems and was within acceptable parameters. I replied, asking which processing systems, specifically, were operating in the lower maintenance level, since all processing equipment was located on the main production floor. He didn't write back. I added the exchange to the folder. The folder is very organized. It is one of my better achievements out here. I mention all of this because of what happened last Tuesday. Routine seep removal, lower level. Mop, shovel, the glamorous reality of grade 3 QA work. I was already composing my Thursday report in my head. Discharge volume nominal. No anomalies. Corridor clear. I am so normal and fine. When I noticed the volume was up, not dramatically, maybe 30% over my personal baseline. 30% more seep than usual, which shouldn't have been notable, except that I've been tracking this for 9 months in a spreadsheet I made myself because the official systems weren't logging it. And 30% is outside the standard deviation I'd established. There was also a smell underneath the main smell. Familiar in the specific way that something is familiar before you can name it, like hearing a song through a wall. I crouched down with my sample kit. Force of habit. I sample everything. I swabbed the residue where it had dried against the composite floor and brought it back up to the lab and ran it through the spectrometer. The readout took 40 seconds. The protein markers were wrong. Not wrong like an equipment error. I've had those and they look different. Wrong like, these don't match any processing byproduct I have on file. Wrong like, the spectrometer, which is a very expensive piece of equipment that does not have a sense of drama, had appended a small automated note at the bottom of the results. Recommend cross-referencing with biological waste protocols. I read that twice. I read it a third time. I looked around the empty lab like someone was going to come in and explain it to me. The atmospheric recycler cleared its throat. I filed a report. It was Thursday, after all. Entry 2. If any administrators are reading this, I want to be clear that I did not go looking for trouble. I went looking for a pipe. This is an important distinction, and I'd like it noted in whatever record this eventually becomes. I'm a quality assurance technician. I found an anomaly. I traced it to its source. This is literally my job. The fact that my job has recently expanded to include crawling through sublevel maintenance corridors with a flashlight and a sample kit does not make me reckless. It makes me thorough. There's a difference, and I will maintain that difference until somebody with actual authority tells me otherwise. Nobody with actual authority has told me anything in 11 months. So, it started the day after the Thursday report. I woke up at 6, ate the product, walked the line, confirmed that everything was within parameters. And then, instead of going back to my quarters to read or stare at the ceiling or have a one-sided conversation with the atmospheric recycler, I went back down to the lower maintenance level with my facility map and a pen and started following pipes. The lower level isn't a pleasant place to spend time. I want to manage expectations here. It's functional, and nothing else. Composite walls. Overhead lighting that flickers if you walk too fast under it, for reasons I've filed 2 separate reports about. Exposed conduit running in bundles along the ceiling. It smells like machine oil and, increasingly, like the seep. I've spent a lot of time down here with a mop. I have not spent a lot of time looking up. The pipes were not on my facility map. That was the first thing I noticed when I actually looked. The map I was given during onboarding. 1 page, laminated, slightly sticky in the top right corner from some previous incident. Shows the lower level as utility infrastructure only. Water reclamation, atmospheric processing, electrical conduit. Standard stuff. Nothing that would produce organic discharge. Nothing biological at all. The pipes coming out of the main seep grate were not on the map. They were large, larger than I expected, maybe 40 centimeters in diameter. Matte gray composite, running along the east wall at about knee height before disappearing into the wall itself. I'd mopped around them for 9 months without really looking at them. The way you stop seeing furniture in a room you know too well. I looked at them now. I followed them along the wall with my flashlight until the wall curved and the corridor narrowed, and I was in a part of the lower level I hadn't been to before, which shouldn't have been possible given that I had walked every inch of this facility approximately 300 times. Apparently I hadn't. The corridor ended at a door. This is the part where, if I were a different kind of person, I would have gone back upstairs, made a cup of coffee, filed a report, waited for someone who was never going to come. I am a very reasonable person, and I understand why that would be the reasonable choice. I tried the handle anyway. Locked. Of course it was locked. I stood there for a moment, with my hand on the handle, like an idiot. Flashlight pointed at the door, reading the label that was printed at eye level in the same standard font as every other label in this facility. Biological processing, sub-level B, authorized personnel only. I had never seen this door before in my life. I had also, now that I was looking at it, definitely seen this door before in my life. Because when I pulled out my facility map and looked at it under the flashlight, there it was. Bottom left corner of the lower level schematic. A small rectangle, labeled, in the same tiny print, Bioproc Sub B. I had looked at this map probably 200 times. I had never once registered that room as anything other than legacy infrastructure. The previous operation, whatever it was, had left behind some old biological processing unit. Decommissioned. Not my problem. I am QA for the canning line, not whatever came before. Except the pipes coming out of the seep grate went through that wall. And something on the other side of that wall was producing discharge with human-adjacent protein markers. And the door was locked. I went back upstairs and ate lunch. It was the product. Obviously, it was the product. Then I went back down with a multi-tool and the maintenance override codes I'd been given at onboarding and had never needed to use until now. The codes are for emergency access to any non-administrative space in the facility. I had always assumed I would need them for something like a stuck conveyor or a pressure sealer malfunction. I typed the code into the panel next to the door, with the calm efficiency of someone who is completely fine and not thinking too hard about protein markers. The door opened. The smell hit me first. Warm. Organic. The seeps smell. Yes. But underneath it, something else. Something I can only describe as new. The way a hospital smells new, clean, and biological, at the same time in a way that makes your teeth feel strange. I stood in the doorway and let my eyes adjust and pointed my flashlight into the room. It was large. Larger than it had any right to be given the footprint of the lower level. Either I'd completely miscalculated the facility's dimensions, or this room extended further than the map showed. And given everything else I was discovering about this map, I was prepared to believe the latter. The ceiling was high. There were units along the walls, cylindrical, maybe 2 meters tall, arranged in rows. Tanks, maybe. Or something like tanks. They were dark, and I couldn't see what was in them. And I decided, very professionally, not to look too closely at them yet. There was a workstation in the center of the room. A desk, basically. Old, functional, the same standard issue composite furniture as everything else in the facility. On it, a monitor, dark, a keyboard, logbook, and a paper logbook, which is insane. Nobody uses paper logbooks. I use paper logbooks, actually, because I find them easier to organize than the digital system. And I like the tactile experience, and it helps me feel like a real scientist. But that's beside the point. I cross the room to the workstation because I am thorough and I document things. And if there's a logbook in a mysterious locked room, then a QA technician is going to look at it. I am that QA technician. I pulled it toward me and opened it. The handwriting on the first page was mine. Not similar to mine. Not reminiscent of mine. Mine. My specific. Slightly cramped. All lowercase except for proper nouns handwriting that I have had since I was 14. And my art teacher told me my letters were too small. And I told her that was a stylistic choice, and it has been a stylistic choice ever since. My handwriting, on a logbook I had never seen before, in a room I had never been in before. The date on the first entry, dog-eared in the middle of the logbook, was 14 months ago. I started this posting 11 months ago. I stood there in the dark with the logbook in my hands, and the seep smelled thick in the air, and the cylindrical tanks along the walls that I had decided not to look at too closely. And I read the first line of the entry. It said, Day 1. Facility orientation complete. Everything seems straightforward. The atmospheric recycler wasn't down here. There was nothing to clear its throat. There was just the hum of the facility and the smell and my own breathing and the logbook. And I stood there for a long time before I did the only reasonable thing available to me. I took the logbook upstairs. It wasn't Thursday. I filed a report anyway. Entry 3. I read the logbook for hours. I made tea first. That felt important. I put the kettle on and stood in the break room waiting for it to boil, and looked at my hands and then looked away and made the tea and brought it back to my desk and sat down and opened the logbook to the first page and started reading. There are 86 entries. Each one starts the same way. Day 1. Facility orientation complete. Everything seems straightforward. Same handwriting. Every time. My handwriting, which is a stylistic choice, which has been a stylistic choice since I was 14, which I apparently have been 14 for a very long time. The dates go back years. Some entries run for months. Dense. Careful. My exact cadence. My exact habit of noting things in threes. Some stop after a few weeks with no explanation. Just a blank page where the next entry should be. One of them, the very first one, stops at month 5. There's no final entry. Just a half-finished sentence about the atmospheric recycler. And then nothing. And then the next section begins with a fresh Day 1, like the page before it doesn't exist. I noted this. I did not write down what I thought it meant. I am a thorough documenter, but I have limits, and I have decided that is one of them. The tea went cold. I didn't notice until I tried to drink it. Here's what I was able to establish from all those hours of reading my own handwriting in someone else's memories. The facility has been running for years, decades. The warm body requirement, the one living human, the Interplanetary Food Safety Authority needs on site, has been fulfilled continuously for that entire period. Fulfilled and replaced and fulfilled again, 87 times, at intervals of roughly 12 months, sometimes less, never more. The biological processing unit in sublevel B is not legacy infrastructure. I am the biological processing unit in sublevel B. I am the SEEP. I mean that in a specific and literal sense that I am still working on accepting. The cylindrical tanks I decided not to look at too closely. I have looked at them now, in my mind, over and over for 6 hours, and I have cross-referenced them against every piece of technical vocabulary I have from 4 years of food science coursework that I did not actually attend, and I keep arriving at the same word. Molds. They are molds. The same basic principle as the canning line upstairs. The same injection process, just scaled. Biological. The SEEP is not byproduct from a previous operation. The SEEP is what is left over when the process is complete, and the excess material has nowhere to go. I have been shoveling myself into the waste system for 9 months. I would like to file a complaint. I would like to file several complaints. I would like to speak to someone in HR about the ethical implications of manufacturing a QA technician from biological material and implanting her with memories of a degree she didn't earn and a university she never attended and an art teacher who criticized her handwriting. And I would like that someone to explain to me exactly what I am supposed to do with this information, given that I am alone on a moon and it is not Thursday. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's new. I don't usually get ahead of myself. I noticed my hands while I was making a second cup of tea. The way the light caught them. Something about the texture that was off in a way I wrote down as inconsistent in my personal log. Because that is the correct technical term for material that is not behaving within established parameters. And I am still, despite everything, a QA technician, inconsistent. My hands looked inconsistent in the kitchen light, and I looked away and drank the tea and went back to the logbook. 12 months. That's the number that keeps coming up. The entries never run longer than 12 months. Mostly, they run about 11. I have been here 11 months. I finished the tea. I went back downstairs. I don't know what I expected. Something documentable. An anomaly with a label. Instead, it was just quiet. Same composite walls. Same flickering light. Same SEEP smell. Warm and thick. Which I understand now, in a way I am not going to write down, because if I write it down, it becomes a data point. And I am not ready for it to be a data point yet. I used the override code. The door opened. I turned the lights on this time because I was going to do this properly, or not at all. The tanks were worse with the lights on. 30 of them, maybe, in 2 rows, most dark and empty. But 2 near the back wall were active, lit from inside with a pale blue light, the kind that makes everything look like it's underwater. I walked toward them, the way you walk toward something you've already decided you need to see. The first tank was nearly empty. Dark residue at the bottom, crusted at the edges, the smell rising off it, warm and specific, and mine. The second tank, she had long brown hair, floating in the solution, drifting slightly with the current from the pump underneath. Green eyes, half closed. Freckles, 7 of them, across the nose and cheeks. The same 7 in the same pattern I have looked at in the mirror every morning for 11 months. And never questioned, because why would I question it? Why would I question anything? I knew what I signed up for. I accepted it in good faith. I put my hand on the glass. I looked at my hand on the glass. The word I had been writing as inconsistent in my personal log was not inconsistent. I know what inconsistent means. I have a food science degree. I have used that word correctly in 412 reports. And I was not using it correctly when I applied it to my hands in the break room this morning because the correct word, the accurate word, the word a QA technician with any integrity would have written down the first time is dissolving. I sat down on the floor. I opened my laptop. I started a new email to her catering division. Sub-level operations. From QA technician, MFG 7. Subject, formal complaint, working conditions, undisclosed biological processes, related concerns. To whom it may concern, I am writing to raise several concerns regarding my current posting at MFG 7, which I believe constitutes serious violations of my employment contract, and possibly several interplanetary labor statutes I intend to look up as soon as I have a better internet connection. I will be organizing these concerns by priority. The dishwasher in the break room has been broken for the duration of my 11-month posting. I have filed 7 maintenance requests. This remains unresolved. I am including this because I want it on record, and because I started this email intending to be professional, and I am going to be professional for as long as I am able. The SEEP, cataloged in my reports as anomalous organic discharge, East Corridor, for which I have an extremely organized folder, was not disclosed to me at onboarding as a known facility condition. The one response I received from facilities management described it as condensation byproduct. I would like it noted that it is not condensation byproduct. I would like it noted that I know what it is now. I would like it noted that I have been managing it with a mop for 9 months, and that the mop was purchased with my own money, and I would like to be reimbursed. The biological processing unit in sub-level B. I need to talk to someone about the biological processing unit in sub-level B. I need to talk to someone about the tanks and the molds. And I need someone to explain to me the process by which a corporation is permitted to manufacture a person and give her a name and a degree she didn't earn, and 7 freckles that aren't hers, and send her to a moon to confirm sodium content and not tell her. Not once, not in any of the onboarding materials, which I read very carefully, because I take my responsibility seriously, that she is going to dissolve, that the posting is only 12 months because that's all the material allows, that the warm body the Food Safety Authority requires has never actually been warm in any sense, that she has my freckles. I keep coming back to that. 7 freckles. I counted them 3 times through the glass, and I know that's my habit. counting in threes. Except it's not my habit. It's just the habit they put in. They put it in all of us. There are 86 logbooks with the same handwriting, counting things in threes and thinking it belonged to them, and it never did. It never belonged to any of us. We are a product. I am a product. I have been performing quality assurance on a product line while being a product line. And I need someone in HR to understand that this is not. I'm on the floor. I sat down at some point. The floor is warm under me, and I know why the floor is warm, and I am not going to write that down. I've been trying to think of what she should know. The next one, 88. I want to tell her about the folder. The folder is very organized. She should use the folder system. It helps. I want to tell her the recycler isn't actually clearing its throat. It just sounds like that, but you get used to it, and after a while, it's kind of nice. It's something. I want to tell her month 4 is the hardest, and then you find a routine, and the routine is everything. The routine is the whole thing. Without the routine, you're just a 23-year-old on a moon, and that's. I want to tell her not to look into the seep. I want to tell her, my hands are. My teeth are falling on the keyboard. Ah ha ha ha. She has my freckles. All 7. I counted. She looks so solid in there. I filed all my reports. I want that on record. 11 months of Thursdays. Never missed one. I wrote them carefully and formatted them properly, and attached all relevant data, and nobody read them. But I wrote them carefully anyway, because I did 4 years of coursework, and I was not ready to be. The lights are nice in here. It's warm. She has. Day 1. Facility orientation complete. Everything seems straightforward.